Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar titled New Year, New Brain, How to Help the People You Love Improve Their Brain Skills. In just a few minutes, you'll be hearing from our presenter, Tanya Mitchell. Tanya is the Chief Research and Development Officer here at LearningRx. I just want to say thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to join us. We encourage you, as we always do, to send any questions you have for Tanya using the questions panel on your screen. We'll take time at the end of today's presentation to answer as many of those questions as we can. We generally host these webinars every month, and all of you really send in some terrific questions. So again, we encourage you to do that. And near the end of today's presentation, we will provide you with a link to download a free copy of our ebook. It's titled Unlock the Einstein Inside: Applying New Brain Science to Wake Up the Smart in Your Child. And that book happens to be co-authored by Tanya, and it was recently reprinted in its 3rd edition. So
all new research.
All new research.
Yep.
It's great research. So before we get started, we're just going to ask you in the next 30 seconds, if you would, to answer a single poll question for us. It asks, who are you most interested in helping today? So if you could just take a second to answer that question. Awesome. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. My name is Lisa Jewell, and I work with Tanya, again, here at the world headquarters of LearningRx. We're located in beautiful Colorado Springs, Colorado.
And it's a beautiful day today. I feel bad for anyone who's not in Colorado.
It is. Today's supposed to be 60 degrees, and by Sunday, it should be 6 degrees. So
yeah, it's snowing, right?
Yeah. But to tell you what to look forward to today, we will be discussing the topics listed on your screen. We'll give you a brief introduction to Tanya. She'll talk to you a little bit about her family. I will give you a brief background and history of our company, LearningRx. Tanya will also talk to you about research on brain training, 7 key ingredients of effective brain training, and then, of course, again, at the end of today's presentation, we will leave time for your questions and answers. So before I formally introduce Tanya, let me go ahead and give you just kind of a brief high-level introduction to LearningRx. So as this infographic illustrates, starting at the top left, LearningRx delivers one-on-one brain training programs that strengthen and improve the 7 core cognitive skills that make up all of our IQ. So these are also the skills that allow us to remember, to pay attention, and to perform mental tasks every day. And those skills happen to include attention, processing speed, short-term or working memory, logic and reasoning, auditory processing. And for anyone who may not be familiar with that, auditory processing really just allows us to blend sounds for successful reading and spelling. Visual processing is a 6th core skill, and that's the skill that helps us create mental images and pictures for better memory. And the 7th skill is long-term memory. All of our programs utilize a one-on-one brain training delivery model, which simply means that our brain trainers work with one client at a time. It's not a group training setting. And our students range in age. It's very diverse, from as young as 4 years to senior adults. And in 2017, we were honored to reach a significant milestone when we trained the brain of our 100,000th client. And I tell you that really not to boast, but just to let you know that we've been in the brain training industry for a long time. We're absolutely passionate about what we do, and the positive impact that brain training really has had on the people who are dealing with cognitive challenges, cognitive decline, and lots of different conditions, which Tanya will show you here in just a minute. We're super excited about the future. We actually have a goal of brain training 300,000 brains in just a few short years, so it's all good. Just to give you an idea of where we are, today LearningRx conducts one-on-one brain training from about 80 locations across the U.S., and we have over 400 licensed professionals delivering our programs in 45 countries.
45.
around the world. So, and by the way, internationally, our company is known as BrainRx, which you see there at the top. So this infographic just briefly explains that our programs have been built on over 35 years of scientific research. We've completed over 20 research studies, and we have many more in the pipeline that continue to be in the pipeline. So we have a lot of ongoing studies. In one of our most recent controlled studies, the clients who were part of a LearningRx treatment group and participated in our brain training programs actually experienced a 21-point change in IQ, which is fairly significant. So with that, I am excited to introduce you to Tanya. She has worked with LearningRx training trainers and delivering our programs. This is your 23rd year, I believe.
I think so.
So Tanya, the mic is yours.
Thank you. So I started brain training back in 1995. My father is the founder of LearningRx, and I was the first non-doctor to have a clinic. And from that, we realized that we could offer really good brain training with really smart people, and it didn't matter as much what their background was. So that helped us license a lot more people and then open centers around the country. I just wanted to, I love to show this slide here, and I'll actually go, this is something that has come out of our research institute in the last year, and it's a groundbreaking pre and post MRI scan, really because after about 72 hours of this type of intense training, which I'm going to tell you exactly how we do our training. This type of training was normalizing this very broken brain, and this was after 8 years after injury. So this was a 58-year-old man who had an injury at age 50, went through 72 hours of our training, and it was life-changing for him. So just a cool slide, nice pictures. I always like to show some of my family photos here.
I mentioned that he had been a chemical engineer before the accident, correct?
Yeah. So he had been an engineer, and then after his injury, he was a janitor. He went through our training, and he actually got his job back, which is awesome. We're also doing, so we're looking at brain injury right now. We're also looking at MCI and early Alzheimer's. Preliminary results out of our institute are really positive, that people that have a brain affected by dementia or MCI can improve their skills, or at least stop the decline. And so this is sort of significant research right now that we're doing. And this slide on the right here, this is actually being written up right now for publication in a science journal, and that's because it's very significant. And this is a college student who had dropped out of college due to too many concussions. And as you can see, there's a missing area on his brain to the left that's not lit up, and it should be lit up. And after 72 hours, that area is back. So this was sort of groundbreaking pre and post MRI scans, just to give you an idea. And if you love research, so we're not going to spend too much time on this, but if you love this type of research, you can visit gibsonresearch.org. That's our research institute. We are now published in the last 2 years. We've been published in 10 peer-reviewed science journals, which is very impressive for any institute. Great thanks to Dr. Amy Moore. You can see her on the bottom of the screen. But just to give you an idea of where our research goes, and the fact that we do have a lot of research backing up what we're about to present to you, and that effective brain training can be very effective if you have the right ingredients, and you can change people's lives if you do it the right way. So let's start with new year, right? New brain. And when I don't know if you guys do this, but every year, usually in December, I'll sit down with my family. I have 4 children, and I'll have them write down their goals for the next year. Because we just got off a family trip, I usually don't do I'm not going to start goals until after a vacation, because that's just going to ruin my vacation. But when you're thinking about goals, when I'm thinking about them, I always think physical, and I think that's sort of where everybody goes. Like, I'm going to get in shape. That's why gym memberships go way up in January, and then I don't know what happens in February.
They actually start tanking about March.
Oh, do they March?
They
try 2 months? That's okay. That's okay. Spiritual goals, mental goals, financial goals, and then, of course, as a parent and a spouse, I'm always thinking about my family or personal goals. So I thought I would just give you a glimpse at my goals this year. I'm hitting mid-40s, and so this last year has been significant in that I'm starting to notice some changes. But here's a few things that I'm planning on doing. All the research out there shows how important exercise is for every individual. And I read the research daily. I need to do it. So I'm gonna try to exercise, do something fun twice a week. So I want to eat healthier. I found out recently I'm allergic to some things that I love, like cheese. And so I'm just going to try to, be better in that. A goal for the brain training industry as a whole, we want to make sure that we have a lot more research out there, really on the everyday benefits of brain training. So we can make huge changes on test results. And a lot of people say, well, what does that do for a person? We want to have that more of it. We have a lot of that, but we want more. I do help develop centers around the world. And so, of course, I want to open up some more centers, 2019. And then this last one really hit me this last year, and that is to keep my brain healthy, because I'm aging. So I'll show you. This is a picture of me with my family. And within my family, I have reading problems, I have ADHD, I have brain injury, and a lot of teenagers, if you can see. My daughter, the one standing, she just turned 16 last week. She recently had 2 concussions, and she was like an A student, very, very sharp. And this last semester, her grades tanked from these concussions. And so that led me to really consider testing. And of course, this is the area that I'm in. So I have test results from her, and I'm going to wait maybe 1 more month, but then I'm going to test her to make sure that her cognitive skills have come back, because concussions can lead to a lot of cognitive weakness, and it can affect her studies. And she wants to be a doctor someday, and I want to make sure that she has the skills available to do that. So she's sort of been a focus of mine. But myself, I'm hitting. I'm 45.96. So what that means here is, if you look at your age, and your cognitive skills, you hit your mental peak at about 28 to 30 years old. And I'm 45, almost 46, and so you can see I'm in a natural decline, right? But we know through brain training that, number one, you can improve these skills at any age. And I don't want to lose my skills. I'm used to having a very, very sharp memory. I'm used to being very quick, and I don't want to lose that. It's an important part of keeping up with, what I do. The bottom one here, the one that's going up, that's knowledge, right? So, hopefully as your cognitive skills decline, your wisdom goes up to sort of balance that. But if you're a parent here today, more focused on your child, most of our clients are school-age clients, but that doesn't mean there isn't hope for you. And if you are a sharp individual and you want to keep your skills up, or if you've always struggled and want to keep your skills up or improve your skills, you can do that. So what I did yesterday, the test was difficult, so I was thinking, I don't know if I want to share this, but it came out okay still, so I'm going to show you my test results. This is the Gibson test of cognitive skills. This is a peer-reviewed, normed, validated test, and we looked at these areas that that Lisa talked about, and I have noticed a decrease in my skill, and it must be related to processing speed, because otherwise I'm okay. You know, it's nice when you're real strong in skills, you know, and then you have any decline, even if you go down to the 70th percentile, you notice it. And I've noticed my eyesight changing and my memory changing a little bit. But this is okay. And what I plan to do, and what I think you should consider about doing, is having this type of testing done at least once a year, almost like a brain health screening, to watch if you are declining more than you want to, or you know, if you're doing something or trying to improve. So this test is available. We're going to talk about it at the end, how to do this test. But these are the areas that we're going to look at. So green is good, bright green is better, yellow is okay. And what that percentile means is if there were 100 45-year-olds in a row, where would I rank? So on long-term memory, I'd rank at the 86. So there's 14 people ahead of me, and then there's 85 people below me. So that feels pretty good. But 53rd percentile, that means there's 47 people ahead of me. And as a competitive person, you know, I don't know. So I'm just going to watch this. So, and this is what we're going to talk today about. What happens when you take this health screening once a year and your skills decline? How do you improve those skills? Or if you test your child and they've always struggled in school, you've always wanted to know if it's a cognitive issue or if it's motivation or behavior or the teacher, you know, what's the problem? This is a really great way to start and to find out where skills are weak. So what happens when skills are weak? We're now going to talk about key ingredients to improve those skills. What 7 key ingredients are needed to improve those skills and to make real life change for somebody? And here they are. So we're going to go through each one of these key ingredients of effective brain training. And by the way, feel free, if you haven't already, if you have a question as we go through here, just type it in, and we're going to have a Q&A time at the end. So here we go. So the first important ingredient is that the training is targeted. And if you are in this profession, or you've read at all about brain training, you'll see things like, oh, brain training doesn't work, or you know, it doesn't help people with dyslexia, or whatever it is. And it's usually, what I would think, because they're not having some of these ingredients, and more importantly, they're not focused on the skills that are weak. So, you know, will working memory training help someone with reading problems? Maybe, if it's a working memory issue. But if they have other skills that are weak, it's not going to help. And so this is just looking at everyday activities. So I mentioned reading. You know, what if someone had problems with word math problems? I mean, a lot of people have problems with word math, but what's, you know, that skill requires certain skills like logic and planning and long-term memory, playing a sport, puzzles, you know, being able to recall things. These all require multiple skills, not just one skill. And in our learning model here, and these are those 7 core cognitive skills. When we consider why someone's having difficulty or how to help them, the first thing to do is you want to test these areas and find out they're weak, and then see if the areas that are weak correlate to what they're, you know, what they're complaining about, right? So my child doesn't attend in class. They hate doing homework. I hate my homework time. And I don't know why they're acting this way. Is it? And so you go and you get these tested. And the reason that it's important to target training really shows up in client outcomes that we have. So these are different groups of people that we've worked with. So as Lisa mentioned, when you think dyslexia, we know now at this point that if you have dyslexia, the likelihood is that you have poor auditory processing skills, especially with the sound-based language, and you have difficulty analyzing sounds in a syllable. But Here we pull up over 2,000 clients that were diagnosed with dyslexia, and you can see that auditory processing was actually the third lowest. There were 2 skills lower than auditory processing. So here it's processing speed and long-term memory. What does that mean? What that means is if my focus is just on auditory processing and I'm not focused or targeted on the areas that they're having difficulty with, I'm missing the boat and I'm not giving them the right program or right training. And that is true. Look at this, attention deficit. And as I mentioned, one of my children was diagnosed with ADHD. And you can see here, the attention score. So we're looking at the pre-column here. The attention score is actually higher than long-term memory, processing speed, and working memory. In other words, this is on 5,400 clients. They come in and attention is their 4th lowest skill. They have 3 other skills that are lower. So if we're just focused on attention and we're not targeted to, and everyone, of course, is an individual, so everyone's going to have a different test result. If you're not targeted and focused in on the right skill, then you're missing the boat. So if you want effective brain training, you can't go do like working memory training or logic training and expect it to improve someone that has reading difficulties, right? You have to focus on what the issue is. Here's autism, brain injury. So you can see multiple areas need to be targeted. Good. The second ingredient required is that this is practiced. And I think a lot of times, the idea of brain training is very abstract. And so I know there was like a big British study where they looked at, does brain training work? And it was a digital program and they did 12 hours and they said, oh, it doesn't work, right? After 12 hours. Well, I'm wondering, like, how much physical change could you make to your body in 12 hours? Not very much, right? Or braces. What if you just put braces on for 12 hours? What would be the impact to your mouth, right? And the same is true with brain training. So none of these people went and took a class and then the next morning woke up with their after picture. And this is a Google search of before and after. So the top left, he obviously, this is many hours, probably months and months of time for him to go from the before and after. You look at braces, which is something, a lot of parents invest in. I've done it with one. I probably have 2 more to go. This is probably years worth of training those teeth to be in a certain spot. On the bottom right, this is a lady who did yoga. So, I always hurt myself in yoga. I don't know why. I shouldn't. But if my back ever gets curved like this, I'm going to do yoga. That's amazing. But we know that this is not something that was just over a short spurt, right? And on the bottom left, this is actually a LearningRx client. This is someone who left the hospital after 350 days. He was in a coma for 70 days. And 2 years later, he started LearningRx at a 1st grade level.
Amazing.
And so, and we know that just didn't happen. So it has to be practiced. There is time spent. An average client in LearningRx training will be there for 90 hours. Even though we don't specifically have a 90-hour program, a lot of our people come in for 120 hours. So this is intense training. Don't expect a significant life-changing result in 12 hours. That doesn't make sense. It has to be practiced over time. The next ingredient, and this is very important, is one-on-one training. And if you think about any significant change that you've tried to make in your life, there's do-it-yourselfers. How many people follow through? And to come back to the 2019 goal of trying to be active, I don't really have, I know that some of you have this, right? You have some equipment. I have a treadmill. I think my husband might use it. It's down in my basement. But sometimes this is what happens without accountability and without people there helping you out, right? And so maybe you have the best intention, right? But let's say your kid was overweight and you thought, instead of going and getting someone to help my child, I'm just going to have my child exercise. And so you buy a treadmill and you say, I just want you to get on that 6 times a week and walk or run as intensely as you can, and then up it as you go. I mean, what's the likelihood of the follow through? It's very, very low. And so, you know, with any training, if I had a personal trainer show up at my door and say, Tanya, it's time to exercise, even if I don't want to, I'm going to be like forced to. I'm going to be forced to improve myself. And so that's what happens in training. And so you can go from, you know, if you were trying to do some digital training and you put that in front of your child and you said, do this and do it intensely, even if you don't like it, it's good for you, you know, versus this one-on-one relationship that trainers have with the students. This is actually a father-son team. And what was real interesting is when his son went through training to make his son feel better, he went through training too. And then he became, he opened up a center. So. And this is also true in studies that we have. So this is an independent randomized controlled trial, and you can see the control group on the bottom. You see the digital training alone, and then you see the one-on-one training. And so does digital training work? Well, maybe it's a little bit better than control, but the one-on-one training is different, right? It's on a whole different line there. That's not to say that controlled or that a combination training can't work. So we actually weren't sure what was going to happen, but when we were doing our one-on-one training, so we had the control group, we had the control group go through our combination training, which is part digital, part one-on-one, and you can see here very significant results for both groups. And the nice thing is it breaks up the training. There's things a computer can do that a trainer, you know, may not do as well. So the mixture, the combination has worked really, really well, and that's very exciting for us. All right, the next piece is intensity. It has to be intense. This is not a knowledge type piece. And so here we have Dr. Christina Ledbetter, a neuroscientist that we work with, talking about intensity. Maybe. Oh, here, it just came up.
One of the things that most impresses me about the LearningRx program is the intensity. And the intensity that you see is kind of logical. That if you want to gain, physical endurance, you exercise with intensity. Well, if you want to gain, brain function, you exercise your brain with intensity. And it's that feature of the LearningRx Cognitive Training program that most impresses me. We see these great results because we train intensely.
All right. So, and Christina is the neuroscientist that produced those beautiful MRI scans. So, which were really exciting for her. So how do we make it intense? Well, there's several ways we make it intense, but one of them was back in the 80s, a lot of training that was done was group training, and it was done over about 1.5 years, right? So, the program was set up where you would do 18 months, you go in 1 hour a week, a lot like training now. Like if you do different therapies, you go in once a week. I don't know, forever. I'm not quite sure how it works. And so that's how we were. When my father changed the method, he took the idea of interval training and added it to our training. And he took the same amount of hours and he put it into 12 weeks at that point. So they come 3 hours a week for 12 weeks. And that was one-on-one training. And so he intensely changed the duration of time, and then also within the week, and then also by not having group training, just doing one-on-one training. And this was the outcome of it. So, back in the 80s, back in the 70s, having any change for someone that had learning difficulties was pretty cool, because the average student in school would actually go down. So they didn't steady up. If you had learning difficulties, it was naturally you would go down. Where after 18 months, he had a 9-month net gain. So he was actually okay with that. But look what happened when we changed same amount of hours, 72 hours of training, and we did the intensity piece. Now we're getting triple the change, and that's pretty cool. So this is a very important part of training, intensity. So next one is feedback, and this comes with one-on-one training, and that is, you know, here's someone exercising, trying to improve their body, and what happens is this personal trainer comes alongside them and makes sure they're doing it correctly, right, so that they're not making errors. And that's an important part of training. So if you were doing you know, some type of training and you were making an error over and over and over again, you're not getting better. You might get worse, and you don't have anyone there telling you, oh, you need to do this or you need to do that. And so one-on-one training gives this feedback, and there's a lot of research on the power of feedback. Here's just a little bit of research, but especially for a human to human, having that feedback makes a big change in the result that you get. Effective brain training must be sequenced properly, and you know, this is something that my children love to do, right? And so this year, for the first time, they didn't get a video game, but a lot of times, you know, at Christmas they get a video game, they go downstairs, they play it for hundreds of hours, and then they call you down,
right?
And they say, hey, do you want to play with us? And so you try to play with them, and you just die over and over and over again. You just you know, and they're laughing, they think it's so funny, and you're like, this is so hard. But we all know that they're willing to do the activity as long as they're progressing, right? And so, and they know that there's improvement in those levels if they do it. So and that keeps them into what they're doing. And so when we work with someone, it's really important to be properly sequenced so that they stay with us and they continue to improve. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. One of the first things we do with a student is figure out what they can do, because we're not here to focus on things they can do. We're here to focus on things they can't do. So we have over 200 different procedures, and each procedure may have like 50 levels. And again, we're picking areas that they need help with at the beginning. But I have a metronome on right now that helps with intensity, and I'm going to have Lisa. She's back. I'm going to have Lisa do some different activities, and you can feel free to do these with me. These are colored arrows, and I will talk about the skills they improve afterwards. You ready?
Yeah. What am I doing?
So I'm going to have you go from left to right. I'm going to have you just do the top row right now. And let's start out by just doing the color of the arrow every other beat. So it'd be something like blue, yellow, red, green,
okay,
red. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Ready? Everyone can do this with her. Ready? Go.
Blue, yellow, red, green, red, yellow, blue, red.
Excellent. So that's like a level 1. Very good. Okay, so now I'm going to have you do the direction of the arrows.
Okay.
Okay, so it'd be right, up, right. Ready, go.
Right, up, right, down, up, right, left, left.
Good. Okay, so now I'm going to have you do them if they were turned a quarter turn clockwise. So if you see a right arrow, you pretend it turns a quarter turn, and you'd say down, right, down. Okay? Ready, go.
Down, right, down, left, right, down, up, up.
Good. Okay, so now you're going to do the same thing, but this time I'm going to give you 2 numbers, and at the end of the row, I want you to give me the sum of those 2 numbers.
Okay.
Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
Ready, go.
Down, right,
12.
down, left, right, down,
7.
up, up. 19.
Good job. Okay, and so what you see there is if I had asked her to do the last level I gave right away, it would have been overwhelming. But because we're watching the student and we're working with them and it's properly sequenced, you can get them to some pretty cool levels right away, right? Mm-hmm. So that's what we mean by sequenced. All right. Effective brain training must be loaded, and this is a big piece. When I look at some of the different apps that are out there, it will give you all the time to do it, and you're just doing one activity. And it really is more like brain fun than brain training, right? We happen to be headquartered in the same city as the Olympics. So all the great swimmers of the Olympics, Michael Phelps, we have ice skating here. We have all different types of bikes, bicycling, hockey, all located here in Colorado Springs. And this is an activity that they do. So, and I'm not a swimmer, so excuse me if I goof up on how I define this, but this is like a swim parachute, right? And so instead of swimming by themselves and just repetitively swimming over and over again, they'll put this parachute on. So what does that do? Well, this is an actual loading activity for physical loading, almost like those resistance bands, right? And that is that it's not like in real life they ever have to swim with a parachute, right? It's the fact that if they do this for a while and they take it off, now they can swim faster or have more endurance or whatever the parachute does for them. And the same is true for brain training. So just like those colored arrows, it's not really about the colored arrows. Those colored arrows, and if you tried it with me, you probably felt attention, right? You had to stay on task because of the metronome. Visual processing, you had to turn the arrow. You had to know direction. And then this loading, when I added the mental activity on top, that sort of scrunched you down. So it's not that we were after people being able to do arrows and computations at the same time. But what happens is as they do what we would call these splinter skills, these underlying skills needed and required to do that task start improving. And so you must have loading to really get improvement. And so this loading also creates automaticity. Whenever I think of automaticity, I think of driving because I just got one kid their driver's license. And by the way, car insurance is expensive.
Yes, it is.
I didn't realize. I was just blown away. But I have this new teenager who's going to get her driving test next week. And how scary the idea of driving with someone is who doesn't do that automatically, right? And I don't know how many times I've driven to work without even considering what it's like to drive. So besides just improving these skills, it's important that they're automatic because you do not use skills that are not automatic. So sometimes you'll see really good test results and people will be able to sort of, do the test better. But because there's not this loading component, it's not automatic and they just go back to how they did things before, right? So the best skills are automatic skills, and that's what we're after with our training. The good news is that this type of training works for everyone. And I showed you some Alzheimer's and MCI pieces at the beginning. Here's a look at IQ change based on ages 5 to seniors that we've worked with. Look who got the biggest change, right? It's the seniors, right? Your brain is not cemented at any time while you're alive. It is changeable and improvable throughout your lifespan. And that is really good news. So you are not stuck with what you have. Old dogs can learn new tricks. And so that's great news. So what we'd like to do now is open up 2 questions and allow you to ask personal questions. If for some reason we are not able to get to your questions at the beginning, or if it may be a little too personal for a webinar, then we will contact you afterwards and answer your questions, okay?
Tony, we have a lot of good questions actually, and here is the first one. This attendee would like to know, how much is testing? How much does the test cost?
All right, so testing, if you were to get IQ testing by a professional, which may be needed if you need a diagnosis, because we do not diagnose, but testing is going to range with a professional maybe about $2,000, And if you go to one of our centers, it's going to be under 300. So it's a real bargain as far as having that test report. But it varies depending upon where you are in the country or in the world. You know, if you're in India, maybe it's only $39. So it just depends upon where you are.
Okay. Another question, how long does it take to complete the test?
So the test takes about 45 minutes. And then if you're at a center, you'll also, someone will do a consultation with you. And so you would come back and they would, you know, give you this 8-page beautiful report. So the first part takes about 45 minutes and then the consultation takes about an hour.
Okay. And I think you touched on this earlier in the presentation, but someone is asking, do we have published research?
Absolutely. We have quite a bit of published research. We actually having our 10th article published this month in a major science journal on seniors and actually their everyday life change, which is awesome. But we've published 10, we've been in 10 major science journals in the last 2 years. And if you go to gibsonresearch.org, which we'll send you a link after the webinar, then you can see all that research and the presentations we've done.
Another question is this. My 86-year-old father has stage 1 Alzheimer's. Will training help him?
Possibly. So this is a new area for us. We're doing, so MCI is considered, you know, stage 1. Not everyone that has MCI gets Alzheimer's, but everyone that has Alzheimer's was first MCI. And so we're getting really significant results with our current case studies. We're very, very hopeful about this helping people in the future. And with the case studies, they either had no more decline or they improved their skills. And right now we're going back, I think we started with maybe 72 hours. And that wasn't enough for people that have, which would make sense, you know, because more damage. But right now we're doing 120 hours with seniors to see if we can get a bigger bump in their skill. So it's good.
Another question is, my child was diagnosed with dyslexia. Will one-on-one brain training help her with reading?
So let me say yes. Because usually when you have a reading difficulty, especially with the English language, the reason that you had difficulty learning to read in the first place was you had some weak cognitive skills, just like I showed at the beginning. But obviously, if you're a problem reader, if you're 12 years old and you have difficulty reading, cognitive training or memory training, auditory processing training, that's not going to be enough. You'll also need a really good reading program. And one that will break habits for problem readers. Good news is LearningRx has reading. So what they do is they'll start with about 3 months of cognitive training, build up those skills, and then they'll go through a reading program again. We average about a 3.5-year gain in reading in about a 3-month period. So they're there for a total of 6 months. And I actually do not know of a better reading program in the world that gets that type of result that quickly. So very effective training. But so answer is brain training is going to help with reading, but you need both components if you're a problem reader.
Got it. And I think you've often said, Tanya, in the early like pre-K, K years of a child's life, they are learning to read, and then about age or grade 3, is that right? You're reading
grade 4, yeah.
Grade
so
4,
you're learning to
learn.
read. So after 3rd grade, they're not going to get any reading instruction from school anymore. And so, but we have a really good reading program. It's been very effective for adults and teenagers, which is, you know, that area that they have questions on.
Great. This question just came in. Do students get at-home training to back up the one-on-one training at a LearningRx or BrainRx center?
So we do have all different types of options. You know, some people, for me, I've had 3 of my kids go through training. As a master trainer, I really felt like I could do it myself, but you know, dinner gets in the way, sports whatever, it got in the way, and so that accountability that comes with personal training was there. So I actually hired the trainer to do all the training. But let's say you live, you know, more than 15 minutes away from a location, or let's say you want to save some money and do some of it yourself. We have all different options for you, and so it really depends on parental involvement. But yes, parents can be completely involved in the process, or if you're an adult, your spouse can be involved if you can work that out. So we have lots of options.
Great. How often is the one-on-one training done per week?
So the ultimate right now would be at least 4.5 hours a week to get that optimal result.
Mm-hmm.
The good news is you're not going for years, you're going for months.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so 4.5 hours a week is optimal. You know, we understand that there's holidays and birthdays and exceptions, but that's where we get the best result.
Great. And Tanya, how, or can you explain rather, how brain training really improves everyday life?
Yes, and so I think first of all, the studies that we have will help. We do have some what they're called qualitative studies where they look at everyday tasks and if they're improved. But I mean, for instance, here you see on a scale of 1 to 10, you know, we average a 9.6 out of 10 for likely to refer friends and family. And let me just show you here real quick. I'll come back to this slide. So if you want to find your center, you can go to LearningRx.com. But we do have, oh, maybe I don't have my testimonials on here. We have studentshoutouts.com.
Mm-hmm.
That's studentshoutouts.com, and that has video testimonials from all different students that we've had. It's their actual testimonial with their parent, and they'll go into how it's changed their life. And then we also have LearningRx-reviews.com. We have like 3,000 now
Mm-hmm.
testimonials.
Mm-hmm.
We average a 4.9 out of 5 stars.
Right.
And so you're not going to get those results by just giving someone a good test result.
Mm-hmm.
Our people are very, very excited about the results that have happened.
Yeah, and I would say again on studentshoutouts.com, you could also kind of look for videos by condition as well. So if you have a child with ADHD, you could go to that category and look for videos among students who have had that condition.
Yeah, and I can tell you in my own son's life, so he went through the program at 8, had some good changes, but he was still significantly impulsive. And so at 15, he got in some trouble. And I had to switch schools. I actually homeschooled him for a year, tried to get him back on track. And then part of that process was to put him through training again. And he was not impulsive anymore. So it was life-changing for him. So he went from not really having big dreams, you know, just sort of living, to all of a sudden he wanted to do all these activities that required a lot of education. He came home on time. He didn't get in trouble. So it was, I mean, all those things that you hope for happened for me. You know, I know not all behavior changes, but it was life-changing for our family, because when you don't have the impulsivity, then you don't have as many sibling fights, and you know, you can actually eat dinner and enjoy it. I'm not sitting there hounding him about homework. He just does it. So all those things that you want to happen for me. It doesn't always happen, but.
Okay, Tanya, in the few remaining minutes, one last question. My son has an acquired brain injury. He went 22 minutes without oxygen at birth. He's very bright, but in school and at home, he cries and acts out when learning something is put before him. So there's learning and behavior issues. Will this training help him? Okay, so I don't have a randomized control trial with brain injury to sort of make a claim like that, because you wouldn't want to make someone wait that has brain injury. What I can say, though, is out of the people that we've worked with brain injury, we're here in Colorado Springs, which means we have Fort Carson to the south, we have Air Force Academy to the north, we have Peterson Air Force Base to the east. And so we started working with soldiers here, and we do have quite a few published studies with brain injury, and everyone got results. So my suggestion is to try it and to go at least 90 hours with it. And I believe personally that you'll probably get a significant result with it. But if at any time you're not seeing changes, then you can make that decision. It's almost like, I think brain training in the future, people will think, if I
if I physically exercise, will I improve my body? I mean, it's going to be that type of question where you're like, yes, of course. Well, I damaged my leg. Can I improve my leg? Well, yes, you can improve your leg. So I think it will be that type of thing where, yes, you can improve your brain. I don't know how much you can or how significant you can, but I do believe you can, and we've seen that from our clients.
Great, so that's the last question. We have other questions to be answered offline.
Okay, so we're going to answer other questions offline. So if you want to start the process and get tested, you can go to LearningRx.com. You can put in your zip code, and it will give you the nearest centers. You can also call 866-BRAIN-01. If you are not in the United States, we do have BrainRx. You can go to BrainRx.com and look at the world map. And then go to your country and find the city. If you do not have a center by you and you'd like to take the test, we do have online testing at gibsontest.com. That's where I got my test from. And if you want to have a consultation with that, you can have that online too. Best type of testing where you're sitting across the table with someone and they can also see how the student's doing is definitely the interactive testing done at a center. So, and thank you so much for joining us today. We are going to send you a link to this 3rd edition book, Unlock the Einstein Inside. It has all new research and studies in there and a lot of our new peer-reviewed research. This is a recorded webinar, so if you would like to pass it on to someone, as soon as we have the recording done, we'll pass you the link. So thank you so much for joining us.
Tanya, thank you, and thank you, everyone. We'll see you next month.